The recording is still going, right?
Yeah, we're on. Yep.
Awesome.
All right, we're good.
Awesome. Let's go.
All right. Well, here we are, the IHSPLA score sheet recording. Just going through it to give instructions and walk through it so everybody has an idea of how it works and some of the troubleshoots and things that you're looking for by the end of the meet as you go through the day. So we're just going to walk through each tab here and then just kind of discuss a little bit some of the scenarios that you may come across. So we'll start right here with the setup tab. The very first or second one there. This will already should be preset for you. We'll have all the teams that are listed in the meet, and then it'll have title, date, and then all of your weight divisions for the meet as well. Lot and flight are typically used for the number of racks that are used in the meet. They're essentially the same thing, something we might edit as we move forward, but if you have 3 racks in your meet that you're using, then you'll have lot 1, lot 2, and lot 3 that you'll divide your lifters into, or flight A, flight B, and flight C as we stand right now. Moving over to the kind of, we'll say the central focus of the primary focus of the score sheet, and that is the field entry tab. So as a meet director, you're going to want to collect as much data prior to the meet, pre-meet as you can. And that is the athlete's name, obviously the school that they are lifting for, their current weight, and then their openers for squat, bench press, and deadlift. If you can get that ahead of time, then you can fill out this field entry sheet and get all of your lifters in, and that leaves a little bit of a short period of time on the morning of the meet to do any sort of last minute changes, which really cuts down a ton of time of just entering in data. So as you go through, again, if you have 3, let's just say you have 3 racks, you're dividing your lifters into 3 different groups: flight A, B, or C, lot 1, 2, or 3. However you determine, and again, we'll continue to evolve with that a little bit. It is recommended at this particular time to list or enter your lifters in order of racks, right? So all of your number 1 rack lifters should be entered first, number 2 following, number 3 after that. And we'll talk about why that's important as we move to the next step. So once all this data is filled in, the only column that you'll have empty will be the body weight column, which will be used for the morning of the meet when all of the lifters weigh in on the day of the meet. Once that occurs and you get that information back to you, then you will enter in their body weight. This is important because there is a notification set up into the score sheet that if someone weighs out of the weight class, you will see a notification, you'll see a red cell, and then that will tell you that you need to go back to the field entry tab, which is the sheet that we see right now, and you'll have to change their weight division. So you guys good with that? Are there any questions at this particular point? I can do a demonstration of that real quick. So if Justin Fields was in the men's 114 weight class and he weighed in at, let's just say 123, when we go to the men's leaderboard, you can see that his body weight is highlighted red, and that tells us that he is weighed out of the original weight class that we gathered when we gathered that pre-meet data. So then I would have to go back to the field entry. And then since he weighed 123, he is now in the 123 weight class. I change that. I go back to the men's leaderboard to make sure that that has been changed. And you can see now.
Oh, you put in F123.
Did I? And that's a problem. That's a good thing that we did that. So again, yeah, all divisions are on here. Females are first. So I'll go to male 123. There we go.
Perfect.
Now he should be listed there, and no longer is that cell highlighted red. So he is now in the correct weight class, lifting in the correct weight class.
So Brian, is the first troubleshoot once everything's input to jump to this? And if
just go through your leaderboards. Absolutely. Go through both the women's and men's leaderboards and make sure that there's no notifications for a lifter who had not weighed in at the correct weight class.
Perfect.
Absolutely. And then you can make those changes first. So we'll just do this real quick, just to make it easy for the rest of the data. Everyone is weighed in. And then we'll move on to the scoring tab. This will be the tab that is used throughout the entire meet. This is where all of the recording of attempts will take place. So your scorekeepers for each rack will enter in data here using lifters cards. So we'll have those distributed to you as well. But what you can see is you have all of the lifters information that's transferred over from the field entry, including their openers, which is right in the correct spot as the first attempt. And then you have 3 columns that will total, or that will display the best, the most successful lift out of all 3. So let's just say, for example, Justin Fields, he scratches on his second attempt. The way that I'm going to input that is, I will input that as a negative number. I'm getting ahead of myself just a little bit. I will go back. Once that's inputted as a negative number, it turns red. And you can see that in column K, that lifter, Justin's best lift was still 155. So even though he attempted 165 and it was no good, it doesn't record that. It only records the most successful lift.
Gotcha.
Let me go back. All right. So once we start the meet and we go through our first attempts, the first attempts are already listed. Okay. So the only thing that the scorekeeper will need to do is essentially, if that first attempt is no good, change that number to a negative number. If it is a good attempt, they can leave it as it is, stays green, and it's counted as right now their most successful lift. So for example, if Justin Fields, or let's go down to Alex Morgan, if her first attempt on squat at 115 was no good, all right, then I would just change her 115 to a negative 115, and it will do the same thing. And right now, she does not have a successful lift in squat, turns red. Okay. For the sake of demonstration, we're going to keep that in there. There we go. If Megan Rapone attempted 105 on her first squat and it was good, I would leave it as is. It shows that it was a successful lift, and it will also show that in column K. We were going to do that for all attempts, all the way across the board, squat, bench, and deadlift. And then your last column will show the lifter's totals. We good to that point?
Yes, sir.
All right. I think we can jump to both the women's and men's leaderboards. We'll go to women's first. Once you enter in your field entry, all of that data and your scoring, all of that then transfers to the next 2 tabs, which is the women's leaderboard, the men's leaderboard. And you can see that each person will fall into the correct divisions. At the top here, obviously we have flight, name, team, division, their body weight, their lot number, flight and lot being the same. What you're seeing in columns G, H, and I are their most successful lifts. So you don't see every attempt, you just see their successful lifts for each of those lifts, and then their total. And then the score sheet will put them in place based on that total, show their school, and it'll rank them correctly based on their total. And you will see their total here, and that's important. And we'll talk about that towards the end. If there was a tie between 2 lifters, and
Here, I'll set that up real quick. While
okay, thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
This cell would be highlighted, and we'll go back and show you what you need to do for that. And then each lifter, based on what place they finish in, will get points towards their team. And we'll show you what that looks like down the road. Joe, thank you for doing that.
That's
So we see that the cell has been highlighted as a tie. So at the end of the meet, you're going to go through your leaderboards, and you're going to check for 2 things, this being one of them, and that is if there are any ties amongst lifters. If there is, you'll see this highlighted cell, and then you will go back to the scoring tab, and you will see that between these two, they have the same total. And what we would do is, well, let's just, for the sake of, I'm going to do this real quick. Still keeps them as a tie, doesn't change anything. But in order to break this tie, we would go back to their weigh-in weight. And the weigh-in weight is in the field entry. And Megan weighed in at 96 pounds. Alex weighed in at 97 pounds. So Megan is the lighter lifter. So that would break our tie. So Megan, we would go back to her last deadlift attempt. And we would simply, she got 155. We're going to make it 155.1. So we'll give her a 1/10 of a point to break that tie. And then when we go into the leaderboard, you will see that that highlighted cell is gone.
Sure. Yeah.
And it ranked them correctly based on that 1/10 of a point. Does that work? Any questions there? All right, so that you'll do that. You'll see all of your data into these leaderboards. Men's are the same way. We have, Justin Fields is in there and Patrick Kane. We adjusted those weight classes because of where Justin weighed in on the morning of.
Right.
And then we'll move over to, and let me know if I'm going too fast. We'll move over to the team breakdown. And this is just kind of a sheet that I think is helpful for each individual team. But what you will see here is you'll see both a men's and a women's divisions for both teams. All of the listers on those rosters will be listed in here. You'll see what division they're in, what lot they're on, what their total was, what place they finished, and then their point value, which will be totaled up here at the bottom for that particular team. So this is kind of helpful for when you get to you could use this to announce your men's and women's division. It's a nice visual. We could get to the point in the future where this is just a nice print off sheet as we're moving throughout the meet after each particular lift to hand out to the coaches, just to give them an idea of where lifters are at as we're moving through the meet. Once we get to the end of the meet, we'll see the final results here. And really where the blue highlighted title cells are, men's team finals, women's teams finals, this is really where you're announcing or determining who the place finishers are for team. So all those points for each individual lifter is tallied up here and then automatically placed where they belong appropriately. And then you can make that announcement from here. When you do individual, you're going to do it from the leaderboard. So I go back to the women's leaderboard or the men's leaderboard, and then I can go through each weight class and list off the place finishers.
Love
it. Excuse me. One thing I want to go back and talk about was another notification. And we'll have to go into the field entry, the scoring tab to take a look at that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do this with Patrick Kane. So one thing that you're looking for is a lifter who is scratched on all three lifts. Once a lifter is scratched on all three lifts, they can no longer score in the meet. They can continue to lift. I think we've agreed that they can finish out their meet, but they cannot score points individually or towards their team. So they are no longer scoring points for the meet. What we will see, and we'll set up the scenario here. Patrick Kane, in his first attempt, 200 pounds on deadlift, he was he was unsuccessful. So that becomes a negative 200. A lifter can, once they scratch, they can try the same weight or they can go up in weight, but they can never choose to go down in weight. Once that weight load is set, that is the minimum of which they can lift. So in this scenario, he would either stay the same or he could go up. He's going to attempt 205. He didn't get it. So we'll make that a negative. And then another 205, didn't get it. Now he's scratched on all three lifts. You can see that his most successful column is still a negative. if we go into the men's leaderboard, and this is something that the meet director or scorekeepers are going to do at the end of the meet, if you see a notification or red highlighted cell on either squat, bench press, or deadlift, they no longer, they've scratched on all 3 attempts. They cannot score. We go back to the field entry because that's where all changes are made. And it was Patrick Kane. And so we take him out of his 114 weight division and we move him into the open division. Okay, it's that simple. Then we go into the men's leaderboard. We look at 114. We see that he's gone. We'll scroll down to the open division. And now he's listed in the open division where you can see off to the right-hand side, there are no points awarded to that lifter. And therefore he's not in a weight division individually, and he cannot score points for the team.
Really good.
So I think that covers all of the scenarios. Joe, am I missing anything there?
No, except that maybe you might, or some teams might bring lifters who just aren't gonna score right off the bat.
Good
And
point.
yeah, if that happens again, do the exact same thing. But again, put them in the open male or female, whichever one they wish to be put into. Just put them in the open tab. The coach should communicate with you, like, here are the lifters that are being scored, here are the ones that aren't, if that situation occurs.
And can I add a little bit to that? To be clear, what coach is talking about is you can only score, the max amount of lifters you can score is 10 towards a team total. State is even trickier, though sometimes there'll be partial bids. So maybe a team would be allotted 5 bids to a state meet. The max they can score in a state meet is 10. If a meet director decides that there's some clearance, some space in their facility to invite other lifters just to participate for fun with their team, great. And that's kind of up to the meet director. And that's the situation that you're referring to. Is that correct, Joe?
Yep, that's correct.
We still want them in. We still want to organize it. They can still compete for an individual trophy, even theoretically, but their points, but this distinction would mean that their points are not counted toward a team score. Can I actually add one last thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
On the team page, before our guy Patrick Kane bombed out of deadlift, there was a tie. So I think what we've talked about in the past is the tiebreaker on the team level has gone to, it's a really difficult algorithm to input into the cells. It's just as easy to do by hand. For whatever it's worth, in 10 years of this, it's never happened either. But if that were to come about, we would go to a team Wilks score, which means essentially you add up all the body weights, you add up all the totals, and you almost pretend that's one big lifter. You input that into a Wilks score, which can be found online, super easy. And that's how we determine that if it ever came. So similar to the 1v1 tiebreaker, same idea, just on the team level, a little bit more addition, but in the super rare occasion that comes to be, that's how we break the tie.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I didn't start with it, but also there's in the very, very first tab here, there's just some quick instructions, very basic, not as detailed as we went through in this video, but something that you can always fall back on and just kind of go through, even a good idea to do ahead of time, just again, to give you an idea. And then when you're sharing results, we'd like to keep the integrity of the score sheet for, historical purposes for the IHSPLA. But we would, if you do want to share with other coaches, we just ask that you download whatever tab that you'd like to share with. And we recommend the women's and men's leaderboards, the team breakdown, and then if you'd like to, the final result tab. And then you just download each one of those tabs as a PDF and share it out that way. That would be the best way to share out results.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that's good. Also, if you're worried about accidentally putting stuff in the wrong tab, Coach Brian, can you actually go to the scoring tab real quick?
Sure.
Just showing what the error message looks like if
Oh,
someone
yeah.
tries to enter in the left. Yeah. So like if someone ever tries to adjust anything like that in the wrong tab, no need to worry. There's this little message that pops up, and then just click OK, and they'll just revert whatever change you made. Or actually, no, sorry, edit anyway. So I guess you could cancel.
You want to hit cancel. Yeah. If
Yeah,
you hit
sorry.
OK, then you're accepting the change. We don't want that. We've tried to put some protections on the cells as to not mess with some of the formulas that we have in there. So you would hit cancel, and then it would
Then it'll revert. Yes.
it would revert back when we move out of there.
Yeah,
So you
ju-
go back
just a
to
small
field
thing.
entry to make that adjustment.
Yeah,
Yes.
all changes go back to field entry.
And did I hear you guys? Because it makes total sense if you go to the one of the leaderboards, Brian. It makes sense that as you're sort of scrolling through and tinkering with this at the end, that the instinct might be, oh wait, Alex actually got 90 instead of 85. You just go right to it and click. But that's another instance, if I'm not mistaken, that you'd have to, you don't make the adjustment here. You still got to go back.
Yeah.
And-
Scoring changes happen on the scoring tab. Lifter information changes happen on the field entry, always happen on the field entry. They don't happen, in those other tabs. And you can see at the bottom, the tabs that are locked, those are protected. Those are places amongst a few other places that, that's not where you change things. It should be done in the field entry. And then for any scoring changes, it happens in the scoring tab.
Love it. Really good.
All right.
Thank you guys so much. A lot of work's gone into this. This is fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.